Welcome back, everybody, to more of the Fruit of Grisaia. We're not quite done with the game yet, although this will probably be the last episode. I'm going to do the other side. We saw the good ending, where we confronted Yumiko's father and, faced her fear. But this is what happens on the other side. What if we just run away? Stay on the lam for the end of our days. Well, let's see what happens. Actively resolving a conflict between human beings is a lot harder than it might sound. First, you need to understand the cause and context of the disagreement in great detail. Only once you precisely identify the interests of both sides can you even begin devising a plan. And when the conflict's particularly volatile, you're building that strategy on a foundation of sand. All too often, the situation will shift underneath you, rendering all of your painstaking preparations useless. In other words, when a serious dispute arises between two people, it's pretty damn rare for both parties to walk away satisfied in the end. Often it comes to an exchange of blows until one side falls. These days it's also pretty common for a third party to impose an unequal compromise, leaving behind mutual animosity to carry over into another round of conflict. Not to repeat myself, but finding a way to genuinely solve the problem at hand is a far more difficult task. That said, there's one and only one universal solution to any such dilemma. The effect's not always obvious, and it's never quick. The exact results vary with the circumstances. Still, everyone understands its absolute power. So when things seem well and truly hopeless, it's a method we often turn to. Time heals all wounds. Human beings forget. Eventually, we die. The irresistible flow of time wears everything away in the end, even our quarrels. That's another hot one. After carefully lowering a box of industrial wire to the ground, I wiped the sweat from my brow with the towel draped around my shoulders. September's nearly at an end, but from the weather you'd think we were still mired in the dog days of summer. The sun blazes ruthlessly down from the sky, and its blinding reflection from the sea is just as bad. But then again, compared to the guys who are actually out there fishing, I don't have much to complain about.
Kazami-san, それ終わったら、大石さんに電話入れてください.
A young man carrying a similar load calls out to me from behind. I got it. Something happened at the office?
漁船の接岸の件で、言いがかりをつけてきてるのがいるんですよ。それで風見さんにって言ってました。
I'm not the harbor's bouncer, you know. I take the rough wooden box from my coworker's hands and add it to the pile with a sigh. Is she sent at the main office or out of sight?
役場です。連絡が来るまで電話の前で待ってると言ってました。
So dependent. Well, not that I really expect him to stand up to a bunch of roughnecks with a body like that. I run into the man every once in a while on the job. He's always been on the scrawny side.
うちで漁師連中を相手に真っ向から立ち向かえるのなんて風見さんしかいませんからね。
Oh, it's easy for you to say. I'll take care of this one, but I think I'm going to tell the office we need to start relying on the police.
その警察も風見さんを頼りにしてるんですから。無理じゃ。
The police, huh? That's a little ironic.
ね、風見さん、警察と昔何かあったんですか？あれだけ喧嘩強いからやんちゃしてたとか、そういうこととか。
Because I'm a UG occupation student. Oh, I'm sorry. Deja vu memories, you know. Troublemaker. I guess you could say that. Probably not in the way you're thinking, though. Leaving my coworker cocking his head in puzzlement, I push open the glass door to the harbor office and step inside. The air conditioning quickly cools my sweaty body. By the time I reach the phone, my overheated brain's finally beginning to function again.
おかえりなさい、ユージ。
Hey, Yumiko. You went out?
ええ、買い物にちょっと。今日は早かったのね。
Yeah, something happened at work. My boss was kind enough to let me head home afterwards.
いろいろ?
Ah, nothing big. I'll tell you while we walk. Taking over for Yumiko behind the stroller she'd been pushing along, I head down the road toward our apartment. The road we walked as students a few years ago, but the circumstances are a little different now. Today, Yumiko and I are walking together, pushing our son along with us. The two of us succeeded in running away from Yumiko's father. I did have a plan for a direct confrontation. But in the end, the risk was just too great. Above all else, Yumiko chose this path. Hypothetically, if her decision had been different, I would have put my fears aside and taken the other road. Our continued life as fugitives absolutely wasn't easy or pleasant. Living in constant fear took its toll on our spirits, and just scraping by was a painful challenge. There wasn't a single moment of true peace. However, on the day we made our choice, Yumiko and I accepted that struggle together. We had to change our hiding place many times, living under false names and working menial jobs, but our determination never faltered again. In about 2 years after our escape, the situation changed drastically. Is that true, Julia? That day my work cell phone didn't just buzz once and fall silent, it rang and rang until I finally picked up. It was the first time that happened since my desertion. Surprisingly enough, but the call itself was downright shocking. JB was calling to inform us that Sakaki Michiaki had aborted his clandestine search and formally disowned his daughter, Sakaki Yumiko. The reason was clear enough. Eager to obtain an immediate puppet to lead the East Beach group after his retirement, Michiaki had grown frustrated with the fruitless pursuit of his daughter and adopted a male child. With that accomplished, Yumiko lost all value to him, and the expensive investigation into her whereabouts was immediately discontinued. So in the end, Yumiko really was nothing but a pawn to him. Normally, you wouldn't abandon the search for your only child just because you'd adopted another. The casual way Michiaki gave up on Yumiko seemed like a blatant demonstration of just how little he'd cared for her as anything but a tool. No matter how completely she'd thrown away her feelings for the man, it was hard to imagine this wouldn't hurt Yumiko. What's that supposed to mean? Well, if he wanted to harass us, it would have been easy enough just to pretend he was continuing the search. It was only a possibility, but Sakaki Michiaki might have been showing us compassion in his way. Not that there was any way for us to learn the truth now. You probably had a lot to do with that, didn't you? Sorry. Right. Since my kidnapping of Yumiko was never officially reported, there was no legal obstacle to us coming in from the cold. Still, I created an embarrassing political problem for Ichigai and deserted my duties. The severe penalty was completely warranted. I honestly never thought they'd just let me go so easily. JB must have pulled a hell of a lot of strings on my behalf. Not to mention everything she did for me while we were on the run. All things considered, I owed my former superior a debt I would never be able to repay. That's so. I don't have any idea who that would be, but tell them I'm grateful. What's wrong, Julia? For some reason, JB rephrases my question in an oddly careful tone. The conversation continued for a little while after that was wrapped up the remaining formalities and briefly discussed the future. Yeah, you too, Julia. And then, just like that, the call came to an end. Staring down at my silent phone, I took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. That was the last time JB and I ever spoke. 2 years have passed since that day, but that black phone hasn't rung even once. When I tell Yumiko about the incident this afternoon, her expression grows troubled. I'm fine. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary. I mean, you know I can handle myself against a fisherman or two, right? After that phone call 2 years ago, Yumiko and I returned to Mishima Cape, the town where we'd met. Thanks to JB's arrangements, I gained regular employment at the town's harbor management office, and the two of us were able to rent a respectable apartment. I did make an effort not to stand out too much, but I haven't quite lost the habits I picked up in my previous line of work. It's become common for me to handle some of the more troublesome situations that arise around the harbor. And that, of course, ends up making Yumiko worry like this. I feel bad, but it's also been a way for the newcomer who just got his job through mysterious connections to earn some trust. Personally, I don't mind as long as there's no real danger.
ねえ、ユージ。
Yumiko draws her body close to mine.
頼られるのはいいことだと思うけど、もっと体を大事にして。これからは私だけじゃないんだから。
That's right. We got a little Yuji. Gazing pointedly down at our child, she hits me with a potent dose of guilt.
もう家族がいなくなるのは嫌なの。
I understand. You're right. I can't just think of myself anymore. Yumiko and the small child at her side are part of my life now. From now on, I'll have to gradually start passing those problems off to the police. Alright, I promise I'll work on that. Honestly, though, it might take some time.
ユージは人がいいものね。少しずつ変えてくれればそれでいいわ。
I'm sorry, Yumiko.
いいのよ。時間はいくらでもあるのだから。
There's a smile on her face as she pulls away.
後片付けしてくるわね。
Right. Yumiko stands up and heads briskly for the kitchen, where she begins washing the dishes from the meal. It's hard to believe this aproned young woman is the same person as that grouchy girl in the school uniform I met a few years ago. She's become so motherly already. After the birth of our child, Yumiko's been talking a great deal about family. I mean, she lost her father, essentially. Her father abandoned her. She lost her mother. Her grandparents, you know, everyone, really, in her life is gone. Except for us. So we gotta stay strong for Yumiko. I suppose it's only natural now that we have a son, but I think there's another shade of meaning behind even in those words. Yumiko had another family once, one that fell apart in a terrible way. To me, it looks as though that loss is still casting a shadow over her.
どうしたの？
Sensing my gaze, Yumiko looks back over her shoulder with a curious expression. Oh, nothing. Just thinking you're really starting to look the part, Mom.
そう？もしそうなら嬉しいわね。
Something about Yumiko's smile suggests she's happier than her lukewarm response would suggest. Normally women don't like compliments that remind them of their age. But I think Yumiko's eager to take on the role of a mother, to become part of a real family. Hopefully I can become a halfway decent father myself before too long.
もう立派なお父さんだと思うけど。
Well, I'm still not thinking like one, as you pointed out this afternoon.
そうね。お父さんはもう少し自分を大事にしてもらわないとね。ちゃんと言ってくれないと嫌よ。
Right. Yumiko turns back to the dishes. The room falls silent except from the sound of water falling from the tap. Is that it after all, Yumiko? With the words running suddenly through my mind, I gaze at my wife's back. $28, $29, $30. Okay, no problems with the quantity or delivery date. Opening up the small binder dangling around my neck, I flip to a blank form and make a few quick check marks. It's a simple job today, dragging emergency rations for disaster relief out of the warehouse, inspecting their contents, and exchanging them when necessary. It's also incredibly monotonous. Naturally enough, my mind turns to other things. Should I say something to Yumiko? I'm pretty sure that Yumiko's memories of her parents are still weighing on her mind. It would be easy enough to say something, but I don't know if that's wise. It might only end up making her even unhappier. So long as she doesn't bring it up first, maybe the kinder thing would be to pretend I hadn't noticed. But is that really good enough? It certainly doesn't feel satisfying.
風見さん、電話入ってます。
My coworker slides the office window and opens and calls out to me from behind. What? Oh, she's saying again? Tell him to talk to the police first, and then, well... Halfway through my sentence, the young man shakes his head and interrupts.
いえ、 女性からです。スオさんとかいう方から。
Money? Alright, tell her I'll call her in the back.
はい、わかりました。
A little while later, after reaching a good point to take a break, I take out my cell phone and call up the list of contacts. It's rare for me to use this thing for anything other than talking with Yumiko, but there are a few other numbers in here as well. Moving the cursor to Suemane, I press the dial button. What could she want?
Yuji, 久しぶり。元気だった?
Not bad, but before we chat, I've got something to say to you.
何かしら?
Don't call my office. We've been over this before, haven't we? Knowing you, I'm sure you enjoy making my coworkers wonder why I get calls from a woman other than my wife. But it's a pain in the ass on my end.
いいじゃないの。そういう浮いた噂でもないと一気に老け込んじゃうわよ。私はいつまでもギラギラしてるユージが見ていたいんだけどな。
So, why the call? You need something?
これといって用事はないんだけどね。そろそろユージもユミコの体に飽きる頃だから、もう一人ぐらいストックとしてどうかなと思ってさ。
Are you serious? I guess they're not keeping you busy enough at that restaurant. I'm gonna hang up now.
待って、切らないでほしいのよさ。
Amani's flustered yelp brings my fingers to a halt just before I'm about to end the call. Must have gotten really worked up. For some reason, she started talking like a certain someone who's been working with her since Mahama Academy shut down. Nice to see her getting along, I guess. It's your own fault for saying that crap to a newlywed man with a child.
ちょっと冗談言っただけじゃないの。過剰反応は奥さんから伝染しちゃった？
That wasn't an overreaction. It was the only appropriate response. Do me a favor and avoid these sort of jokes in the future, okay?
そんな、こっちはこっちでおじいちゃん相手に愛想笑いしとる毎日なんやから、たまには若い男師範をからかおうてもええやないの。
Trotting out her convenient, poor little country girl accent, Amane begins a familiar womanly woe routine. Kinda nice to know she hasn't changed at all, but it's also a pain in the ass to deal with. I'm left with a wry half smile on my face. Can't quite commit to the full smile. To be fair, I probably would have just brushed off that kind of stupid joke a couple years ago, but now that I've started a family with Yumiko, I don't want to talk about this sort of thing, even as a joke with an old friend. Fine, whatever. So how's it going over there anyway? You doing alright? A change of topic seems warranted. I switched the focus of the conversation to Amane. She's spending pretty much all of her time helping out at her family's traditional restaurant, as the first step to eventually taking over the business. Sounds like it's been especially busy lately, but they're hanging in there. Of course, all of our former classmates from Mahama Academy are off living their own lives as well. That sounds like things are going pretty well on the whole.
で、ユージはどうなの？仕事も家庭も順調？
That's right, very smooth. With the words halfway out of my mouth, I find myself hesitating.
どうかした？ユージ。
Not really. Back when the two of us were still on the run, I did tell Amane a little about Yumiko's past. And although I never learned the details, I know Amane is carrying scars from her past as well. She just might have some useful insight to offer. Hey Amane, there's something I want to ask you about, if that's alright.
どうしたの？改まって。はは、さっき言ってた夜の話、案外言いたいとこ伝えたとか、そういうことなの？ねえ。
Trying to have a serious discussion here.
何よもう。はい、それでどうしたのよ。
Clearly noticing my serious tone of voice, she finally stopped screwing around. So here's the thing.
そっか、ユミコがね。やっぱり過去ってそうそう消えないのよね。ああ、そりゃそうだわ。
While I was talking, Amane simply repeated "uh-huh" in a thoughtful tone of voice, as if comparing the story against her own experiences.
私にもはっきりしたことは言えないけど、ユミコはユージに言ってほしいんじゃないかな。
You think?
本当は自分から言いたいんだけど、一度ユージと一緒に逃げるって選択をした以上、あの子からは言えないんじゃないかな。
Yumiko and I chose to run away from Sakaki Michiaki instead of facing him. Talking about her lingering regrets regarding her father might be taken as an admission she's unhappy about the choice we made. You could twist that into a criticism of me, or a sign of dissatisfaction with our life together. Considering Yumiko's personality, it seems very plausible she's keeping quiet out of fear I'll take it the wrong way.
どうかな。的外れだったらごめんね。
No, you were a big help. Thank you. After ending my call with Amani, I had to stay in there for a while, lost in thought. We have a happy life. As long as Yumiko's with me, I don't need anything else. And I think she feels the same. But if we continue to ignore her regrets entirely, I think the shadow of the family she lost is going to linger over her for a very long time. Maybe that's inevitable either way. You know, maybe that's just the price we have to pay for running away. Still, that doesn't mean I could just turn a blind eye. I guess it's worth asking. Opening my cell phone once more, I move the cursor to my most commonly called number and hit the dial button. The cool sea breeze takes the edge off the late summer heat. These unseasonably warm days are going to be continuing for a while, but once the sun starts to fall, there's a hint of chill in the air. The seasons pass so quickly that it's almost scary.
今日はどうしたの？ちょっと遠回りしようだなんて、友人らしくないから驚いたわ。
The reason I called Yumiko earlier was to propose we take a walk after meeting up this evening, instead of heading straight home as usual. Yumiko seemed a little puzzled at first, but agreed easily enough. Well, I just wanted to make a little time for us to talk, I guess. Watching my wife's long hair fluttering in the wind, I finally broached a topic I've been avoiding for so long. Yumiko, I've been wondering. Do you really have no regrets?
悔いって何の？
I'm talking about your father. It's been on my mind for a while now. When you talk about me and our son, sometimes it makes it seem like you're seeing someone else as well.
そんな、それはだって一度選んだことじゃない。
All of a sudden, there's a deeply guilty look on her face. Looks like Amani was right. Yumiko was worried about admitting her feelings. I'm not criticizing you, Yumiko. If anything, I've been feeling a little guilty myself. I'm the one who made this happen, after all.
ユージ、そんな。
Would you like to see your father again? I don't know how long it will take, but if that's what you want, I'll try to make it happen. Please be honest. Once again, I turn and gaze straight at Yumiko. A familiar, beautiful face that looks back at me, illuminated by the setting sun.
ユージには何も隠せないわね。
Yumiko murmurs those words in a pensive tone, then bends down and reaches a hand inside the stroller I've been pushing along. Stroking the head of our son affectionately, she continues in a quiet voice.
不思議よね。あんなに憎んだのに、今になってこの子を見ていると、だんだんとお父さんのことを思い出すなんて。
So then...
できることなら一度だけでもいいからちゃんと話がしたかった。でもそれを言っちゃいけないって思って我慢してた。
She looks up at me and smiles.
信じて、ユージとこの子との生活は本当に幸せなの。それが崩れるぐらいなら今のままの方がずっといいと思ってる。
That makes sense. It's logical.
でももしその機会があって今の幸せを崩すことなくお父さんとのわだかまりを解けるのなら、私もう一度会いたいと思う。
There's so much strength in Yumiko's eyes right now, more than I ever would have thought possible from her. This isn't anything like that sharp but fragile mask she always used to wear. It's the expression of someone with a firm will and courage to spare. They do say women get a bit of steel in their spine after becoming a mother, and looking at Yumiko's face, I find myself agreeing. Understood. I'm sorry for dragging it out of you. I know that was hard to say.
ユージこそありがとう。また気遣わせてしまったわね。
But after another gentle smile, her expression grows slightly gloomy.
でも口で言うほど簡単なことではないのよね。
The search may have been discontinued, but that doesn't mean Michiaki's eager to reconcile with his disobedient daughter, let alone the man who carried her off. Well, it might be difficult right now, to be honest, but that might change with time. Things that seem permanent can change with surprising swiftness when the right moment arrives. Just as our fugitive life abruptly comes to an end, someday we might be able to put this bitterness behind us. Right now, the passage of time is our greatest ally. Yeah, that's right. That might be all we need. I bend down and peer into the stroller. Our son, too young to even speak, is sleeping peacefully inside. Stroking his cheek very softly, I speak to Yumiko. We might already have a potential peacemaker.
この子が?
Yeah. No matter where you go, people love to dote on their grandchildren. It might be a little much to expect that cold-hearted capitalist to transform into a smiling, genial old man once he lays his eyes on his grandson, but somehow, I think there might be cause for hope. I haven't forgotten that story JB told me on the day our life as fugitives ended. Depending on how you look at it, that might have been an act of mercy. The greatest possible kindness Michiaki could have ever shown his daughter. Naturally, I'm not planning to act based on the most optimistic possible interpretation. Still, I can't help thinking there was some real compassion in that decision. I'm not sure exactly why I feel that way, but I think I have a vague idea. It's got something to do with the way I've changed. The way Yumiko and our child have changed me. That ugly, impenetrable black fog inside me has been thinning out these last few years. Now and again, I can even make out a beam of light. Thank you, Yumiko.
突然どうしたの?
Well, no one in particular. I stroke my puzzled wife's head affectionately, then begin to walk slowly along, gazing up at the pale red evening sky stretching out above us. Family wasn't always a word that meant much to me. For a long time, there's nothing but a gaping void where that part of me should have been. But meeting Yumiko and sharing my life with her, I started to discover small fragments of what I lacked for so long. Sakaki Michiaki ignored his family, threw his wife aside, and tried to use his daughter as a tool, and in his own way, I think he's a hollow, lonely man. Not so different from how he used to be. I don't know how long it will take, but maybe one day I can tell Sakaki Michiaki what I've learned. And the part of him he never knew was missing.
Grisaia no Kajitsu.
Well, the Fruit of Grisaia is officially over. The series has finally concluded 241 episodes of Grisaia, with more Grisaia to come, and the Eden of Grisaia. So if you want to keep up with the story, well, you'll want to watch Labyrinth first to kind of get the whole backstory, and some characters reoccur in Eden. But yeah, it's this was a hell of a game, let me tell you. There's a lot of content for this game. I loved it. I loved the game, and I had some people ask what my favorite route was. Well, that's hard to say. That's hard to say. I liked them all in their own ways. If I had to pick a route, I think Michiru's was my favorite. I liked the whole conflict within herself, you know, with the split personality kind of deal, and you know, it was really nice. I liked it. You know, I thought that was a really good route. That's probably my favorite one. I know that's some people might disagree, but you know, it's my opinion, so you know, that's what I think of it. So what was your favorite route in the game? Comment below, and I will see you all next time. Have a good day.